Hello, my friends. Welcome to a new insight. You can get over it. How to confront, forgive, and move on with your life in hurtful things that happened on your side or on the side of your friends or of others, done to you or done by you, as we need to admit that can be. This is your Pastor Yadi. Today I'm gonna show you how Satan penetrates one of Jesus' closest associates, the friend who became Jesus' betrayer. This session will help you understand the devil's strategy to use people close to you to inject hurt and betrayal into your heart so the pain can then festers into bitterness. Judas Iscariot was Jesus' close associate for 3.5 years before he became a betrayer. In fact, he was so close to Jesus that he became the treasurer for Jesus' ministry. See John 12:6 in that. This gives us insight into the kind of relationship that existed between Jesus and Judas. We may assume that as treasurer for Jesus' large ministry, Judas probably had many lengthy conversations with him to discuss finances. Jesus must have trusted Judas and his administrative abilities to put him in charge of such a vital part of the ministry. Yet, this trusted friend and associate became the very one Satan used to betray Jesus. Have you ever wondered how it was possible for someone so close to Jesus to become his betrayer? How did the devil slip through the cracks and so affect Judas' attitude that he would sell out the Son of God for 30 pieces of silver? As we have already seen, the devil is looking for a way to penetrate every good relationship. No story demonstrates this better than the story of Judas Iscariot. Let's take a look at one particular event where the devil obviously found a point of penetration into Judas' life. In John 12, Jesus and his disciples were having dinner in the home of Mary, Martha, and their brother Lazarus, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. This family was very close to Jesus during his early ministry. Martha showed her love and gratitude for Jesus for what Jesus had done for them by preparing a large meal for him and his disciples. And Mary showed her love by bringing Jesus an extremely expensive gift, and Lazarus showed his love by simply sitting with Jesus at the table as a close friend. This is an interesting demonstration of how different people express their love in different ways. The Bible tells us that the expensive gift Mary brought Jesus was an ointment of spikenard, an entire pound of it. Spikenard was one of the most expensive perfumes that existed at that time. Let me tell you a little about spikenard so you can appreciate what Mary did for Jesus that day. Spikenard or spikenard was an uncommon perfume extracted from grasses that grew into the country of India. Once the juices were squeezed out of the grass, they were dried into a hard, lard-like substance. Turning that lard-like substance into perfume was a very lengthy and costly process, and to this cost of transportation it from India to other parts of the world. And you can see why this particular perfume cost so much money. Spikenard was so expensive that few people could buy it. Most had to buy one of the many cheap imitations available. But the word used in John 12 verse 3 tells us that Mary didn't bring Jesus a cheap imitation. She brought Jesus the real thing, an ointment so valuable it was normally reserved and used only as gifts for kings and nobility. This was the gift Mary brought to Jesus. We can learn more about the value of Mary's gift in John 12 verse 3, where it says the ointment was very costly. This phrase, very costly, is from the Greek word pulotimos, a compound of the words pulos and timios. So pulos and timios. The word pulos means much or great. The word timios means to honor, to respect, or the attribute word to something. When these two words are compound, the new word describes something that is of great worth or something that is of considerable financial value. We call this the top of the line giving. As remarkable as it is that Mary even possessed the gift is valuable, it is even more amazing that she brought it to Jesus. And even more phenomenal than that is what Mary did with this perfume when she brought it. John 12 verse 3 says, "Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus." Everyone must have gasped when they saw Mary take the lid off that bottle, tip it downward, and begin to pour that precious ointment on Jesus' feet. This kind of perfume was not normally used on feet. Mary's action would have been considerable and horrible waste in most people's mind. But that's not how she saw it. Mary loved, appreciated, and valued the feet of the Master. Isaiah 52 verse 7 describes why Mary felt this way. "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that brings good tidings, that publishes peace, that brings good tidings of the good, that published salvation, that says unto Zion, thy God reigns." No other feet in the entire world were more beautiful to Mary than the feet of Jesus. Jesus had changed her life and brought her brother back from the dead. See John 11:32-44. For her, every step Jesus took was precious, honored, and greatly valued. For 3.5 years, Jesus had thought, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Matthew 6:21 and Luke 12 verse 34. Mary's actions revealed her heart as she poured her most valuable treasure into the feet of Jesus. And John 12 verse 3 tells us that she wiped his feet with her hair. In other words, after Mary poured the spikenard onto Jesus' feet, she reached up to her head, untied her long beautiful hair, and gathered it in her hands. Then she leaned down and began to wipe Jesus' feet, dry with her hair. In the days of the New Testament, a woman's hair represented her glory and honor. The Apostle Paul referred to this in 1 Corinthians 11:15 when he wrote that a woman's hair was a glory to her. For Mary to unto her hair and use it as a towel to wipe the feet of Jesus was probably the greatest act of humility she could have shown. She was demonstrating how deeply she loved and greatly valued Jesus. I can imagine the tears that streamed down her cheeks as she touched these precious feet in total humility. Mary dried Jesus' feet with the glory and honor of her hair. John 12 verse 3 tells us that the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. However, the devil was able to use Mary's act of humility and love toward Jesus to create an opportunity for bitterness, resentment, and offense to take over in Judas' mind. Judas indignantly asked Jesus, "Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor?" John 12 verse 5. Judas said that spikenard could have been sold for 300 pence. What is a pence? The Greek word for a pence is denarius. In that day, a Roman denarius was 1 day's salary. When Judas announced that the spikenard could have been sold for 300 pence, he was saying that Mary's perfume was worth 300 days' worth of salary. In other words, this was an extremely expensive gift. But Jesus explained to Judas that Mary was anointing him for the day of his burial. He also told Judas to leave Mary alone and not to disturb what she was doing. See John 12 verse 7. Then Jesus continues saying, "For the poor always you have with you, but me you have not always." John 12 verse 8. This answer could have easily been misinterpreted. Those who were listening could have thought Jesus was saying, "Quit talking about poor people. You'll always have the poor, but you won't always have me." Jesus had certainly demonstrated his compassion toward the poor during his 3 years of ministry. Nevertheless, his words to Judas could have sounded arrogant and intensity to those who were listening. Did Judas misinterpret Jesus' response that evening? Did he perceive Jesus to be arrogant and insensitive to the needs of poor people? The disciples watched as their valued treasures was poured out on Jesus' feet. It looked like superfluous waste and excess. It's obvious that Judas considered it to be exactly that. What about all the poor people who could have been helped with the money from the sale of that perfume? Weren't they more important than this expensive demonstration of love? As you will see in John 13 verse 2, the devil found entrance into Judas' heart during this dinner at the home of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. Somehow, that evening, the enemy had found an open door, a way to penetrate Judas' mind. How did the devil get into Jesus' inner circle of friends to try to abort his ministry? Did Judas become offended with Jesus? This is how the devil was able to start pounding away at Judas' mind until he was finally lured into betraying Jesus. John 13:2 tells us something very powerful about the way the devil establishes a foothold in Judas' heart and mind that night. It says, and supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. Especially notice the phrase, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot. The words put into come from the Greek word balo, one of the two words that make up the compound word diabolos, the name for the devil that we discussed earlier. This word balo means to throw, to cast, to trust, or to inject. It carries the idea of a very fast action of throwing, trusting, or injecting something forward, such as the throwing of a ball or rock, or the forward thrusting of a sharp knife. Whenever something becomes a major issue between you and someone else, you would be wise to back up and re-examine what you are upset about. Often the person you're upset with is someone you love and need in your life, and therefore ask yourself these questions. Do I want to let the devil build a wall between me and this person over something that won't even matter a year from now? Do I really think this person intended to hurt me? Wouldn't it be better to forgive him or her and preserve our relationship, which has taken so long to build? Is what happened really so serious, or am I blowing the whole incident out of proportion? Have I ever been guilty of committing the same offense against someone else? So let me give you an important piece of advice. If you will concentrate your attention on the condition of your own heart, you'll be too busy to focus on what you think is happening in other people's heart. The condition of our hearts is serious business. Hebrews 12:15 tells us that it is our responsibility to oversee what goes on inside our own hearts, minds, and emotions, as long as our hearts and minds are free of bitterness, resentment, and forgiveness. The enemy will find it harder to penetrate us or to access our relationships. We don't ever have to make the mistake that Judas did. So think about it. The mind-numbing pain from betrayal in an intimate relationship is designed by the devil to strip your confidence and disrupt your life on the deepest level, from how you view your worth to how you value others. Jesus was wounded in the house of his friends. See Zechariah 13 verse 6. And yet he refused to be distracted from the Garden of Gethsemane to Golgotha Hills. Jesus demonstrated that prayer was central to his response toward disappointment, betrayal, false accusations, and deliberated attack. Think about it. Whom do you need to forgive? In what practical ways can you commit yourself to God and to prayer about this situation in a way that's deeper or different than what you've done in the past? Have you avoided prayer because you're actually angry with God regarding what has happened? Are you so disappointed with yourself that you aren't willing to try or trust your own choices? Some betrayers are strategically launched into your life by the enemy to detonate like a time-released bomb. Others, however, are creative through the course of offense that your own behavior may have perpetrated. Have you, by your own conduct, caused a loyal friend to turn into a staunch enemy? Has your own behavior provoked a friend to stumble and be ensnared by the trap of bitterness? Do you justify behavior that tempts others to become offended with you? Think about it. Think about that you can amend your ways to prevent the pain of another damage or destroying friendship, and the need to repent later for your part in the outcome. Think about, my friends, and pray. What a story. What an effect it had. Judas. My God. Now listen to this very strong story and reflect on your own heart. May God protect you from this dark influence, and may He help you when you have experienced some kind of this that is done to you or you did to others. Make it right. Make it right, friends. Make it right. Don't close it as a jail. Open the doors. Let yourself free and also others. Go with God. This is your Pastor Yadi. Bye-bye.